Meet the Robinsons. If I told you that I had traveled through time into the future, would you believe me? And what if I told you that while I was there, I met my son, and he was just my age? Or what if I told you that I traveled back in time and saw myself as a baby? Would you believe me if I said that a real-life T-Rex almost ate me for dinner? Believe it or not, it all really happened to me. It's all possible with a time machine, a great invention that lets you travel through time. But that's all in the future. I'd rather tell my story from the beginning. It all started late one dark night. My mother bundled me up in a small box, delivered me to an orphanage, and then vanished into the darkness. That's me, Louis, the adorable baby on the doorstep. And there's Mildred answering the door. She took care of me and all the other children at the orphanage. Mildred believed that somewhere there was a family for me. I met many couples at the orphanage, hoping that someone would adopt me. I'm an inventor, so I always showed them my latest invention. But none of the couples seemed to like them. Like when I met the Harringtons, Mildred said, "Go show them how special you are." But they didn't think I was so special when my invention exploded. At times like this, it was hard. "Nobody wants me," I complained to Mildred. "My own mother didn't even want me." Mildred explained that maybe my mother did want me, but just couldn't take care of me. This gave me an idea. If I could just remember my mother's face, I could find her and we could be a family again. That very day, I began inventing a machine that would retrieve my early memory of my mother. I called it the memory scanner. Now, being an inventor isn't easy. Here's what it takes. Brains plus hard work equals great invention. My science teacher, Mr. Willistein, told me about the upcoming school science fair. So I figured that my memory scanner would be my science project, but I had to finish it in time. So the night before the fair, I worked late into the night. My roommate, Mike Goob Yagubian, was a big help. The next morning, Goob and I were both completely exhausted. I barely made it to the science fair on time, and Goob barely made it to his big game. I couldn't wait to show my memory scanner. At the science fair, I prepared the memory scanner for the judges to see. While I was setting up my project, the weirdest thing happened. A boy named Wilbur popped up and told me, "This area is not secure. Have you been approached by a tall man in a bowler hat? My informants say he is after you." Now I thought this kid was crazy, especially since he claimed to be from the future. If I had only known that right then and there, the tall man's bowler hat, a robot named Doris, was taking apart my invention. It was my turn to present my science project. "I've built a machine that can retrieve forgotten memories," I said. Then I started the memory scanner. But my invention malfunctioned. One thing led to another, and the whole science fair burst was ruined. In all the commotion, Bowler Hat Guy snatched the memory scanner and took it away. My memory scanner was a disaster, and I'd ruined the science fair. I went to the orphanage roof where I always go to be alone. But this time, Wilbur followed me. He said, "I am from the future." I said, "Prove it." He said, "Okay," and pushed me off the roof. I landed on something in midair. Wilbur pressed an invisible button and a time machine appeared. We blasted off in the time machine. The future appeared before my eyes, and it was amazing. I suddenly realized, why should I fix my dumb memory scanner when I could visit my mom right away in this time machine? So I tried to steer the time machine back to the past. Wilbur grabbed the controls away from me and steered towards the future. Kaboom! We crashed. Wilbur said his parents would be furious with him because, number 1, we crashed and broke the time machine. Number 2, Wilbur brought me from the past. You're smart, said Wilbur. You fix the time machine. Under one condition, I said. I fix it. You take me to see my mom. Wilbur agreed to the deal, and we pushed the time machine into his garage. That's where I met Carl, a real robot. Carl could tell I was from the past because of my hair, so Wilbur plopped a fruit hat on my head to hide it. Now in the future, even garages are fascinating. I took a few steps to the side and suddenly I was sucked up into a travel tube. That's how I met Wilbur's family, the Robinsons. Grandpa had a face drawn on the back of his head and wore his clothes backwards. He introduced me to Aunt Billy. Nice to meet you, Louis, Aunt Billy hollered over the steady chug of her toy train set, which was a real life-size train. Uncle Gaston was shooting himself out of his cannon. Uncle Art delivered pizza in a spaceship. Grandma Lucille boogied down. Cousin Tallulah modeled her new hat. Cousin Laszlo was painting murals with his paint-spraying gun. Uncle Fritz was being nagged by his wife, Aunt Petunia, a hand puppet. Wilbur's mom, Franny, conducted a big band of frogs. Wow, what a family, I thought. Meanwhile, Bowler Hat Guy was in the present with my memory scanner. I had not realized that his bowler hat, Doris, had sabotaged the machine, and that it really worked. Now Bowler Hat Guy was trying to sell the memory scanner to Inventco, pretending that it was really his invention. But he was kicked out of the building because he did not know how to switch it on. I was the only one who knew how, so Bowler Hat Guy time-traveled into the future to look for me. Back at the Robinsons, I couldn't figure out how to fix the time machine. Wilbur switched the fruit hat for a baseball cap, and I sat down to my first ever family dinner. The only Robinson who was missing was Wilbur's father, who was on a business trip. His motto was, "Keep moving forward." He invented Carl and the time machine and other cool inventions. The Robinsons enjoyed a friendly meatball fight, and I felt right at home. But Bowler Hat Guy and Doris were spying on us. I did not even realize he was after me. Now you aren't going to believe what happened next. A real T-Rex burst through the window and snatched me up in his great jaws. Aunt Billy sent her train roaring towards the dinosaur. Laszlo sprayed the dinosaur silly. Tallulah, Joe, and Carl tried to trip him. Uncle Art bombarded the big beast with pizza dough. Gaston fired meatballs from his cannon, but nothing could defeat that mighty T-Rex. Then Wilbur noticed the smaller little Doris on the dinosaur's head. Who would travel a zillion years back in time to fetch a great dinosaur to capture little old me? Bowler Hat Guy, of course. By attaching little Doris to the dinosaur's head, he could control everything the T-Rex did. Wilbur knocked little Doris off the dinosaur's head with one of Uncle Gaston's meatballs. The T-Rex became bewildered and fell down with a thud. When it was all over, I said to the Robinsons, "You all sacrificed so much for me." Then they all started talking about what a great kid I was and how they all just loved having me around and all this mushy stuff. I'll tell you a secret. It felt kind of nice to hear all that mushy stuff. I finally felt that I really belonged, and I even told them that I was an orphan. And then I heard the magic words I had been waiting for my whole life. The Robinsons offered to adopt me. I was so happy. I had found my perfect family at last. But Wilbur spoiled my great moment. He knocked the cap off my head. "Aye!" screamed the Robinsons. As soon as the Robinsons saw my hair, they changed their minds about adopting me and insisted that I return to the past. My happy feeling inside turned into a big, fat lump in my throat. It wasn't fair. Just because I was from the past, my perfect family no longer wanted to adopt me. So I ran away. Even though the Robinsons didn't want me, I still hoped that my real mom would. Then I heard a voice. "I'll make you a deal," whispered the voice. "I'll take you to see your mommy in my time machine if you show me how to turn on the memory scanner." It was Bowler Hat Guy's voice. So I showed him, but Bowler Hat Guy did not keep his end of the deal. He and Doris took off in the time machine without me. But first he told me a few surprising facts. "It is I, Mike Yagubian, your old roommate Goob," he said. "If you hadn't kept me up all night working on your stupid science project, I wouldn't have fallen asleep and missed the game-winning catch," he said. "My team lost the championship all because of you." Bowler Hat Guy held me responsible for ruining his whole life just because I had kept him up that night. Now, are you ready to hear something truly fantastic? Here is what Bowler Hat Guy told me next. I, Louis the Orphan, grew up to be Cornelius Robinson, the great inventor. Apparently, I had invented the helping hat, but locked it away when it didn't work right. The hat escaped and became the evil Doris. After that, Doris and Goob became a team. We both had a score to settle with you, Bowler Hat Guy told me. Now I understood everything. The Robinsons were right. I had to return to my past, so Grandma and Grandpa Robinson could adopt me, so I could grow up and marry Franny, so I could have a son called Wilbur, so I could become a great inventor. If I wanted to stop Bowler Hat Guy from changing my future, I had to get back to the present, and the Robinsons' time machine was the only way to get there. I got started fixing the time machine. I tell you, my brain never worked so hard. After a while, I noticed a red light in the garage. A monitor appeared in front of me. It showed Doris's evil plans for the future. I kept staring in horror as the monitor now showed Bowler Hat Guy starting to sign the contract with InventCo. That single action changed everything. Doris had been the brains behind the evil duo. Once she got Bowler Hat Guy to sign the contract with InventCo, Cornelius Robinson would never become a great inventor. And Doris was able to control the future. Doris's vision of the future was horrible. She wanted to ruin everybody, even Bowler Hat Guy. I couldn't let that happen. I had to prevent Bowler Hat Guy from signing that contract. I finally started up the time machine and headed straight for the past. Your future is about to change, Doris, I thought to myself. Time was running out. I burst into the InventCo boardroom in my time machine just as Bowler Hat Guy was about to finish signing the contract. I yelled, "Goob, stop! You don't know what you're doing. Doris is using you, and once she gets what she wants, she'll get rid of you." Bowler Hat Guy looked bewildered. The pen dropped out of his hand. Doris's eye turned a furious red. When she came at me, I said to myself, "Think, Louis, think. I invented Doris in the future, so what if..." I looked right at her and said, "I will never invent you." Suddenly, Doris vanished like a bad dream. Without Doris, Bowler Hat Guy became much nicer, kind of like my good old roommate once again. All was finally well. When I returned to the future, the Robinsons gave me a big welcome, and there was one more Robinson. Wilbur's dad, Cornelius, had just returned home from his business trip. It's pretty weird to come face to face with your grown-up self. Wilbur's dad, the older me, showed me around his laboratory. There were cool inventions everywhere, fabulous gadgets and gizmos that I'd always dreamed of inventing. My toes were tingling at the sight of it all. Our first real invention was the memory scanner, Cornelius said. So it really did work, I said. Then I asked him the big question. Do we ever meet our real mom? He just said, I think you have to get back to that science fair and find out for yourself. Before I went back to the science fair, I had to say goodbye to my future family. It wasn't too sad because I knew I was going to spend the rest of my life with them. Wilbur was supposed to fly me back to the day of the science fair. Instead, he took me back 12 years earlier to the orphanage steps, and there she was, my mom. I had always dreamed of meeting my real mom, and I could have met her right then. But I didn't even try. I'd seen how wonderful my future would be with the Robinsons, and I didn't want to give it up. I'd already found my perfect family, so I felt happy. Wilbur took me back to the present. Before I rushed to the science fair, I knew that first I had to stop at the baseball field. When I got there, Goob was fast asleep in the outfield. The ball was headed right towards him. I woke him up just in time to catch it. His team won the championship, and that changed Goob's life forever. As for me, you'll be happy to know that this time at the science fair, my memory scanner worked perfectly. All the judges loved it. They thought I was the best little inventor ever. The judge from Inventco, Lucille Krunkelhorn, loved me so much that she and her husband, Bud Robinson, ended up adopting me. And then, well, you know the rest of the story.